Hello and welcome to episode 137 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show that's all about talking about movies. I am Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy, Puchko, and Angie.
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
We have a double review week for you today. This week, we're going to do two reviews. One for the movie The Handmaiden, and then another for the movie Moonlight. First up on the list, though, is Handmaiden. Kristy, that one is all you.
Okay, here is the IMDb plot synopsis for The Handmaiden. A woman is hired as a handmaiden to a Japanese heiress, but secretly she is involved in a plot to defraud her, which is accurate but sounds really dry. This is actually based on a British novel, and in it, I don't know the novel very well. In this, it's a pickpocket who, in Japanese-occupied Korea, is trying to help a con man marry a heiress so they can get her out of her money. That's the main plot, but this is from Park Chan-wook, who did Oldboy and Stoker and the Vengeance trilogy and Thirst, and he has made this movie that every time you feel like you got a beat on it, it surprises you. And I saw this movie 2 months ago and tweeted obliquely. I was not allowed to say that I had seen it yet, so instead I just tweeted, I'm pretty sure I saw the best movie of 2016. I absolutely love this movie. The performances are really interesting. The levels to it, it's if you like Park Chan-wook, which his whole thing, I mean, if you saw Oldboy, you know, he likes taking like dark and twisted topics and playing with them in these ways where they're shocking and they're upsetting, but they're also weirdly funny. And in Stoker, I loved Stoker and thought Stoker was even better than Oldboy, and I think The Handmaiden's even better than Stoker. I think the way he plays with an emotional story and twisted elements and this really fucked up sense of gallows humor is brilliant.
I've been trying to read Angie's expression the entire time, and I can't.
Oh, no, I saw this with Kristy, and I don't think I liked it quite as much as Kristy, but I love this, I don't want to give away, like,
it's so hard.
It takes a lot of weird twists and turns, and it's hard to talk about without trying to give anything away, but that's one of the pleasures of it, like, just when you think you have a beat on, like, oh, okay, I see what this is now, the story is suddenly just, like, kind of veers left, and you're just like, wait, what just happened? But I think the thing that delighted me most about this was that so I was expecting something that's like dark and twisted and sexy and whatnot, but I did not expect it to be so fucking funny. But I laughed more at this movie than I have at like a lot of comedies, and I'm not even kidding.
And it was also funny because Angie and I went to see it, and she sits down and she goes, okay, so this movie's like 2.5 hours. What the fuck? And like, you have to understand that from a perspective of a film critic, like, we work all day writing for you guys, and then we go to a movie at night. I know that sounds like the life. But when you see a good movie, it's awesome and everything's gravy. When you see a movie that's 2.5 hours long and it's not good, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? So like 2.5 hours is always an ominous thing for us. But then I would have watched a 4-hour version of this movie. I loved it. Like, I just wanted to hang out with these
characters. I don't know if I'd watch a 4-hour version of this, but I was surprised how it didn't even just justify the 2.5-hour runtime. It needed it. There was no way to tell this story any other way but in 2.5 hours. And I think this is an absolutely fantastic movie. It is so incredibly well done. There's, like you said, so many twists and turns that would not have worked with any other cast, with any other filmmaker. I will say it's not my cup of tea. I probably wouldn't be watching this again, but I appreciate everything they accomplished in it. And
I was really curious.
I was pretty riveted the entire time. It's just when it was over, I'm like, oh, that was pretty damn good. But it wasn't the feeling like, I'd watch that again.
Because I think it's a good movie, but we've talked about this before. You can think a movie is a well-made good movie, but not a movie for you. Like, that doesn't mean you have to like it. So I was really curious what you were going to think, because for all the, like, horror elements to it, which this is, and I want to just prep people to manage your expectations, this is not the level of, like, fucked up violence of Oldboy or anything in the Vengeance trilogy.
Not even close.
Yeah. It's twisted in a different way.
It's more racy than it is violent.
Yeah, like taboo and racy and whatever. And there's a lot of sex and, but what for... so, like, to that end, I didn't necessarily know if you'd like it. And then there's a very strong romance plot, which normally romance movies are not Perri's jam, to the point where, if you remember last year when Perri said she loved the movie Brooklyn, Angie and I were like, what is going to happen to Saoirse Ronan in this movie? Like, we were astonished and confused about what was going to go on. So I wasn't sure if you'd like it, but I'm excited to hear that you enjoyed the ride of it.
No, absolutely. And it's a beautiful movie, too. It's a beautiful movie, so well shot. I love the colors of it, and the score is pretty incredible also. I think it kind of it drops out where I wasn't noticing it as much. And like, I know you don't want to notice a score, but I just mean noticing it as being a really, striking and, perfect combination with what you're seeing on screen. But like at the beginning, I was noticing it. And at the end, it's got like a little bit of a tune that kind of pairs really well with just the vibe of the movie that sticks with you. And I found myself humming it a little after. So I really enjoyed those elements of it too.
I think it really fits that because like this is like a really sensual movie, and one of the things that it does really well is it has some of the most like kind of just ostentatiously gorgeous production design. Since it reminded me of like Crimson Peak or like Only Lovers Left Alive, where you just want to like spend your
two of my favorite movies.
I wanted to spend like a day just like walking around and just like at this like really
the costume
really
design,
richly detailed,
production design and costume design is through the roof here.
And the costume design said so much about the characters, too. It wasn't just pretty. Like, oh, God, and the two lead performances. It's so hard to talk about this because this is one of those movies where it's like, if I talk too much about the performances, I feel like I'm tipping the hand of what the movie's about. But
okay, well, we can talk about it a little bit in general terms. So I think all the performances are really strong across the board. But one of the ones that surprised me was I really liked the male lead more than I was expecting. His name is, hold on, I'm gonna look at it really quick. His name is Jung-woo Ha. And he plays the guy who kind of like orchestrates this whole plan to like he's the con man. And he just I thought that his role really cracked me up. Like he's I think out of all the characters, well, all the characters are kind of hard to like really quite figure out where they are, but I think that his character surprised me more than a lot of them in some ways. And the guy just like nails it across the board. I thought he was really really funny. I thought that he gives a performance that has that has no vanity. So I really enjoyed him.
It is strange because it's like there's parts of this movie where I didn't know what this movie was going to be. I knew it was Chan-wook Park, so as soon as I heard about it, I said yes. Like literally, I got the invite and it said, we're having all these screenings. I was like, the first one, go on to the first one. Just because Chan-wook Park, I was interested. And I had seen like part of a trailer that was like, the lesbian erotic thriller that thrilled Cannes or whatever. Sure. It is that, but it's so much more than that. This is not like some gross like diabolique, like, oh, let's look at lesbians have sex. Like the way that Chan-wook Park shoots the love scenes, I found incredibly moving and sexy and kinky and also humane. Like, because the characters are really living in these moments. So it's not just like an excuse to ogle two women having sex. It's like you actually get to see their relationship grow as this scene plays out. And it was actually like, I'm trying to remember the first part where I started laughing and wondering if I was supposed to be laughing. And then like the point where I was like, oh no, he's definitely creating not a comedy because there's a lot of darkness here, but he definitely plays in these dark moments with funny moments. And I'm trying to think of what point I realized like, no, he's totally inviting us to laugh here. Like not at the characters, but kind of at life.
I don't know. I do know that there are some moments that are kind of funny early on, like little things. Like there's a scene where you first meet the main character and she kind of like trips over something, and it's just like it's just like a silly little like, oh, haha, I wasn't expecting that. But then like as the movie went on, like more and more, I was like, wait, is it supposed to be this funny? I guess I also want to talk a little bit about one of the themes of this movie that I think it does explore really well is kind of the way that both female characters are trapped, one by poverty and the other by wealth in different ways. And I think that and the way that and a lot of the male characters in this movie, they're sort of that what works against them is assuming that they are in a place of privilege, and that's like when that's when they'll get you. Sorry, I feel like that is so vague.
No, I think that's actually really great. I feel like when people watch this episode, they'll go back to this episode and be like, yes, agreed. But for now, we have to be mysterious. I don't want to ruin it.
I do kind of wish that even certain things that we've brought up weren't even brought up, because even though I've been hearing from the two of you how great this movie is, I mean, I haven't bothered to watch a single trailer, look at an image, read a review, nothing. So I really went into this having absolutely no clue what I was in for. So going in with that right off the bat, and then making assumptions every step of the way throughout the entire thing, and having all of those assumptions just like torn apart in my face, that's what makes the experience what it is. So the one thing I can suggest at this point is just to avoid everything you could possibly read about this movie until you see it for yourself.
Yeah, in fact, you shouldn't even have been listening to this episode. What was wrong with you?
That's on all of you. I have a question. I had read, and I didn't confirm this anywhere because I'm not a real journalist. I had read that Korea is mad at Chan-wook Park, so this will definitely not be their Oscar submission. So if that's true,
they've already picked an Oscar submission. It's not this,
Yeah.
so it's not. I don't know if that's related or not.
well, that's what I heard is why this was not picked, even though this did really well, it can. So, like, if that's true, does that mean this is totally out of the Oscars race, or is it a co-production at all that they could, like, say, like, oh, well, France gave money or something like that? Does anybody know?
I mean,
shouldn't have brought it up.
I don't think that would exclude it from Best Picture.
It wouldn't, but I'm saying it's really hard for foreign films to make that, even when it is 10.
Of course.
Okay, I will say that on IMDb, it's like, you know, and IMDb is not always 100% accurate, but Under Country just says South Korea. I don't think that, you know, I don't think it's going to be entered as a foreign film by any other country, if that was your question. Like, I don't think Japan's going to enter it or anything like that. I guess in theory, you could say, like, you know, it's as eligible as anything else for any of the other Oscars, but as Perri pointed out, it's very rare for a foreign film to get a lot of mileage in, like, Best Picture or Best Actor or something like that.
Yeah, and it's Amazon Studios. So even though Amazon's got a really strong slate this year, actually, I kept seeing Amazon in front of a lot of the New York Film Festival films. I don't know that they're ready to, like, launch an Oscar campaign. So what?
But does this even strike you as an Oscar-y movie to begin with? Because the movie Korea ended up going with was Age of Shadows, which is like, actually, I think that one's also about Japan-occupied Korea, but it's like a more straightforward, like, war drama thriller thing. Like, this is much more like, you know, racy and crazy and lurid and funny.
I think the actresses have a really strong shot at least, if not winning the Oscar, then at least like a nomination.
You're saying that you think they deserve to, or that you think they will?
I think they have really good chances because their roles in which they have to accomplish a lot. Also, their roles in which they have to use their full body, which can go one of two ways with the Oscars. But in this, I think that they would have a good shot if Amazon could really put them out there. But it's a thing like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you would really have to make that push. And I don't know that Amazon has the knowledge to do that, and maybe not even the money to do that. I don't really know. I mean, I guess it depends on how much Amazon's putting into their films.
This is one of those movies, though, that we're all constantly talking about and praising within our own circle. I feel like in terms of like wide viewership and even the voting academy from a wide perspective, I don't think people are aware of this enough, which I guess is a good reason to go watch The Handmaiden and then tell your friends to go watch it.
Keep hearing about The Handmaiden. This is one of the best films of the year. I honestly, right now, it's my number one. We'll see how the next couple of months go when all of the big things that are campaigning hard for Oscars come out. But I absolutely think people should see The Handmaiden. It's astonishing and surprising and really fun in a fucked up way.
Yep, seconded.
Alrighty.
But we should
move on to movie number 2. All right, Moonlight.
Okay, spoiler alert. I mean, I love this episode because we are literally talking about 2 of my favorite movies of the year so far. So here's the IMDb synopsis for Moonlight. A timeless story of human connection and self-discovery, Moonlight chronicles the life of a young black man from childhood to adulthood as he struggles to find his place in the world while growing up in a rough neighborhood of Miami. That is accurate, but I think also kind of like The Handmaiden, it makes it sound much more like straightforward and dry than it is. It's basically, the movie is split into 3 very distinct acts, with the main character, whose name is Chiron, played by 3 different actors. One is a child actor, one's like kind of a teenage age actor, like the character's in high school at that point, and the one is him as an adult. And it's just it's a coming of age story, but it's just done in a really unusual way, and it's done about the kind of character that you don't see very often. And I feel like I'm making this just sound like, you know, like, oh, like I feel like I'm making it sound like the cinematic equivalent of Vegetables, but I found this to be such a pleasure to watch. Like I feel like it's absolutely gorgeous to look at. That's one thing that these 2 movies that are otherwise very different have in common. You know, the score is so evocative. The acting is incredible. Like, it is crazy to me that the main character is played by 3 different people, because they've done such a good job of stitching their performances together that it almost feels like this was like a Boyhood style experiment where they just picked one person a long time ago and kind of stuck with him. But that's, yeah. This one is just, it's really tender. It's getting a lot of praise, and I kind of worry that it's the kind of movie that is actually just so delicate and you know, tender that it maybe won't, not that it's not as good as the praise, but you know, like some movies, like you're just worried that too much praise is going to make it seem like it's going to be something that it's not. So even though I really do find this to be one of my favorite movies of the year, I'm a little bit worried about what people are gonna think after hearing like all these like this is the greatest movie ever made kind of praise.
Well, the thing is that I try to make this clear in my review for Pajiba, because when I heard everyone talking about Moonlight at a TIFF, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it premiered at Telluride first, but yeah, then it played at TIFF.
Okay,
right
so
after.
like when I heard all the praise, I had a certain expectation because usually the movies that get praised out at festivals like that are quote unquote Oscar bait movies that have big dramatic moments. And Barry Jenkins doesn't give us that. And I mean that as a compliment. This is a much bolder direction. Like, Chiron is a very introverted, quiet character. And so the movie, instead of giving him these huge proclamation speeches or long monologues about where he's like, this is who I am and this is what I do, and a big once speech, it asks us just to watch him in silence as he suffers or as he explores a moment of bliss, or and through that it demands a patience and attention from the audience that I think is great in a film festival scenario. I'm not sure how much it'll play out as well in theaters, but Angie, maybe you can speak to that in a minute because you did see it in theaters this weekend again. But I saw it at New York Film Festival, and I was really taken away by how pensive the film is and how lovely and how patiently it unfolds the story. And Barry Jenkins does not feel the pressure of typical dramas to give you these big moments to keep you interested. He trusts in the character and he trusts in the story, and he tells you this unusual, and I say not unusual because it's not he tells us this story we don't see very often is what I'm saying, because it is the story of a young Black man who is LGBTQ. So that's just something that like we don't get to see a lot of movies about. And the way he tells that story I thought was so powerful and so fascinating. And I mentioned in my review for Pajiba, because we don't see a lot of films like that, I didn't know what the map was. So watching it, I got very anxious because I was like, where are we going? And like, it just tugged at my heart because I wanted good things for this character who goes through so much trauma in the context of this film. And I just thought that the way he ends it is beautiful and thoughtful and real and human. And I'm really blown away. I saw his film Medicine for Melancholy a few years ago, which had Wyatt Cenac. And that was really funny and thoughtful and had like black and white and gritty and kind of a hipster romantic comedy. This is totally different and extraordinary.
Yep. I basically second just about everything you guys said.
You guys were having such a good
I know. I think this is the first time we've agreed across the board in like
in a
weeks
long
now. But I really can't think of a single negative thing to say about this movie. It's just so refreshing to get such a dedicated character piece like this. And I kept thinking about Boyhood, and then I kept thinking, oh, look at what they did with the casting of that. Did he really have to shoot that movie over all those years? Because, well, and the thing is, I love Boyhood. I'm addicted to Boyhood. I could watch it over and over and over again. But this one, it's like the three actors who play Chiron, you could see that they were cast to make you believe that they were the same person, but at the same time, they all do such a good job of highlighting what point in his life he's at and how much he's changed from the previous point while holding on to just enough of the person that he was before, so you never lose sight of who he was from at the beginning. And that is a pretty freaking incredible achievement.
Can I tell you something about that? So I read an interview where apparently the three actors were not allowed to look at each other's performances while they were shooting, and not only that, they didn't actually even meet until the film festivals.
Wow.
That's insane.
That's unreal.
I don't know what their process was on set, but something like that to me sounds like, an actor's director directing his actors in the best possible way for this kind of story then.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, the thing is, though, like, even when you get to the third guy, like, oh god, that performance just like they're all really good, but when I rewatched it yesterday, the last one just like breaks me because like you just
he's great.
So in the third act, I don't want to give away too much of like what happens to the character, but like when you go from the second act to the third act, initially it's surprising because the character seems to have changed a lot, but then as that third act goes on, you kind of see more and more of like the continuity with the other two versions of the character that we've seen, and it just that the third act just crushes me because you just see so much like fighting in his face. Like you see like hope and like loneliness, and you see like it's like deeply romantic.
Such a good performance.
It's just, oh my god,
I'm like getting upset remembering. And it's like the thing is watching that was the thing I said in my review for Pajiba, that watching that third act I was so concerned because I wanted good things for him so badly. And I felt so connected that I thought, like, if I don't get good things for him, I can't handle this. And, like, it was so exciting to watch that. And you could feel, at a New York Film Festival, it's usually a pretty good audience at the press screenings. But sometimes you can feel when people are just not into it. And I just remember feeling absorbed in this wave of, like, everybody in the room just wanting good things for this character. And it was so cathartic and beautiful. And yeah, these movies both came out this week. It's crazy.
I'm looking at a picture of the three of them at New York Film Festival right now, and it's making me really happy. Like the three of them just together in a red carpet situation.
Aww.
Yeah, the performances are all, but they have this like vulnerability to them. He also picked all three of the actors because the character is just like, he's a very like taciturn, like not at all talkative kind of guy. So much of this is just like watching him watching him look, watching him absorb, watching him need without being able to express,
which could go flat so easily. Mm-hmm. Like so many people have shot that same kind of thing, and you're just like, I got nothing. You're giving me nothing. But these guys,
and it's insane that they found these three actors that are all like able to do it so well together. But I mean, so Kristy, I think you said that like one of the reasons that you're so concerned is because there's no roadmap for it, but for me it was also because this kind of does feel like a movie that like not that it's a movie I'd necessarily categorize as like gritty and naturalistic, but it does have kind of the rhythms of real life. And in real life, sometimes shit just comes at you sideways and breaks you, or something great happens. So I really didn't know, like, I'm like, which kind of movie is, like, what direction is it going to take? I had so much faith that either way it was going to be something satisfying and meaningful and interesting, but I didn't know, like, yeah, like I when I watched it the second time, I knew what was going to happen. I was still just like clutching at myself, being like, please just let Chiron be happy.
It's interesting to compare the running time of this movie to something like The Handmaiden, because not that Moonlight is short, but it's only 1 hour and 50 minutes, and the fact that you have a very clear understanding of who this person is to such an extent and such a short amount of screen time is quite the achievement.
Well, because it's a very small story. It's very intimately told, and I think that that's another thing that it deserves praise for, because it's really hard to tell that kind of story and keep it feeling interesting and important the whole time. And I think that Barry Jenkins has just done a beautiful job. Like this movie is just so beautiful. Like it's just astonishing, and I really liked that the film doesn't like explain things to you. Like the movie starts and you see a kid run by and all these people chasing him, and they never there's never a line of dialogue being like, we're chasing you because we're bullies or anything, and like nobody goes like, hey sis. Like there's none of that really cheesy expositional dialogue that demands you understand the scenario. It basically says, Chiron watches, you're gonna watch, and you have to pick up the cues. I just thought, like, it's actually interesting because I would say that's true of both films, but they're asking you to pick up for cues for very different things. And yeah, I'm really excited. These movies both opened last weekend, and we wanted to talk about them, but we thought the Ouija 2 was kind of better for a big ep. But I'm really glad that we're taking this week to focus on them, because regardless of how award season goes, these are two of the best films all year, and you should make it a point to see them.
I do want to add one thing, because I think it'd be sad not to mention the supporting cast. Like I like what you say. I like what you say about it being, a very intimate movie, and this is, this character's movie, but it's never at the expense of the supporting characters around him. And there's just a long list of supporting characters that really deserve a lot of attention. But the one I want to highlight is Naomi Harris, because I thought she was absolutely fantastic as his mother.
Did you know that she shot her entire thing during the Spectre press tour?
I did. I read that, and
I read that it was 3 days. I didn't know it was during the Spectre. Holy
it's crazy.
Shit!
It's crazy.
Apparently, and then Mahershala Ali, who I think is like, that's the one that I would want to single out. To me, he's like the first among equals. He's so good in this movie. Apparently, he just shot it like on his time off from doing Luke Cage.
Jesus, and I'm watching Luke Cage now, and it's so cool because those two performances. I would say that like, if you look at them at a distance, they're similar characters. They're both criminals. Whatever. They're both criminals in an urban environment, but everything else about them is so different. And it's just fucking amazing to watch him on screen. I want him to be in so many things. Like I hope this year is huge for him, because he's so good in Luke Cage and he's amazing in Moonlight. I want him to get supporting nods, because we've talked about this. It's tricky.
He was good in Kicks too, but I haven't seen that
one. The
one.
leads in Moonlight, because they share the lead role, we've been talking about like, will they be promoted as leads? Will they be promoted as supporting? And I think if they're promoted as supporting, it'll take away from Mahershala Ali, which I think would be a really shame. I think I've horribly mispronounced his name, and I apologize for that. But he's really good in this, and I think he has a stronger supporting edge over the actors who play Chiron, but then that sucks because they're amazing too. I don't know. This is why award season infuriates me, guys, because these movies are amazing, and then we try to categorize them, and it all gets fucked.
Also have to shout on Andre Holland and all the actors who played Kevin. It's another situation where they're all so well cast, they're all so talented, and I've been watching him. I wasn't all that familiar with him. I had seen him in a whole bunch of things, but I wasn't so focused on like who he was, what his name was, until American Horror Story, because he's a big part of it this season. And then seeing him in this, I'm like, damn, this guy is so good.
So it sounds like either way, yeah, watch Moonlight, watch The Handmaiden, everyone wins. These are both delightful.
See them both. They're so fucking good. Make it a double feature. Guys, it'd be an LGBTQA. I screwed that up. LGBTQA. Yeah, double feature.
All right, guys, get on it. Go watch these movies. Thank you so much for listening. That is a wrap on episode 137 of Popcorn Prosecco. Go on over to iTunes and subscribe, comment, and rate. Please visit our website, popcornprosecco.com. We are on Twitter at Popcorn Prosecco. Please like us on Facebook as well. And then you can find the three of us all over the internet as well. Angie, do you want to take it first?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for slashfilm.com.
Kristy?
You can find me on Twitter at Kristy Puchko. It's KRISTYPUCHKO. And I write all over the web. You can find my career highlights at decadentcriminals.com.
And you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at Nemiroff. I write for Collider.com, and I'm on the Collider Videos YouTube channel. And that's all we got for you this week. So go watch those movies, and we'll see you next time.